take a country like Cuba. Cuba's been under sanctions of our country now for 40 or 50 years, and it was always to punish Castro. But Castro benefited by it, because every time something went wrong with communism, he says it's America's fault. We need to trade and talk with people like this, and it's so much better than this idea that we have to put on sanctions. Sanctions are actually an act of war. We did that for 10 years with Iraq. We knew it would lead to end up in war. We're putting on endlessly stronger and stronger sanctions against Iran. We don't need to spread that war into Iran. One of the first things that I would do if I were to be the president, one of the first things I would do is announce a change in policy and move our Navy back from Iran and saying, remove the sanctions, we're going to talk to you. They tell us that if we don't invade and bomb Iran, just like we were told we had to bomb and invade Iraq, that they someday might get a weapon. Lo and behold, they might get a weapon. The Soviets had 40,000 of them, and they had missiles, and we talked to them. I mean, in the midst of the Cuban crisis, Kennedy calls up Khrushchev and said, what are we going to do? And Khrushchev said, and Kennedy says, get the missiles out of Cuba. And Khrushchev says, well, we want the missiles out of Turkey. So they did, and they settled it. So Iran, Iraq, they don't have nuclear missiles. People say, what are you going to do if they did get one? Well, I wouldn't like it, but I'm not going to invade them. We didn't have to invade the Russians and we in the Soviet system, and it still worked out. But what we should do with the change in policy, we would remove the incentive for these countries to get nuclear missiles. The Pakistanis have nuclear missiles, quite a few of them, and there's a mess over there. And we're in the middle of it. We've orchestrated the conflict over there. Musharraf, a military dictator that took over from an elected government, we've been subsidizing him. You and I have just sent over these last several years, $10 billion. And what did we get for it? Nothing. So it's time we change. We can't buy our influence over there. When they get nuclear missiles, then we sit down and we talk to them, we give them money. I mean, it makes no sense. There should be a third option. One is, if you're threatening, if you don't have a missile and we want to deal with them, we say we'll bomb you. If they obey us and do what we want, we subsidize them. We don't need to either bomb nor subsidize. We just need to be friends with people and have a strong national defense so somebody will know how to mess with us. That they have to build up fear in our hearts and minds so that we capitulate and give up our liberties. This is one of the things that they do here domestically. And when they have a problem, they have to declare a war. There's one war domestically that I think has gone wrong. It has never benefited us. It's cost now hundreds of billions of dollars over the last 30 years. We should get rid of that war, and that to me is the federal war on drugs. Does not mean that you endorse people's abuse. We have alcohol is legal in this country, but that does not mean that we endorse unwise use of alcohol and drunk drive or anything else. People have to be responsible, but the decision-making power has to be put in the hands of the individuals. There's to be regulations should be by the states. But this obsession on drugs has gone too far because the compassionate conservatives are so compassionate that if state legalizes marijuana, and if you happen to be suffering from cancer or AIDS and you're using legalized marijuana by the state, the federal government comes in and overpowers the states and arrests people who are sick, and if they've been caught the third time, we'll put them to jail for mandatory lifetime sentences. It makes no sense. Another absurd spin-off on the drug war is this idea that industrial hemp has to be illegal in this country. It makes no sense. You know, there's a very good chance that You know, my position on energy is that the market determines what is most efficient. The politicians in Washington know nothing about it, so when they decide, well, it's ethanol from corn that's going to save us, then beware, because it probably won't work. And it may be used, but it's going to cost more than if the market determines it. But if we do need ethanol, Brazil finds out that sugar cane is better than corn, and also if we look at it, industrial hemp is better than either one of them. But what do? We make it illegal. Solving problems such as the energy problem we have is not to set the goal of energy independence. That is so easily sold to people. Oh yeah, we have to be energy independent. Well, you know, Japan has no oil. And do you think they sit around all day long, how are we going to get to be energy independent? They just go and buy it, you know, in Amsterdam. You know, there's an international market. So it would be nice to be independent if we could, but we've used up a lot of our oil. And there's still a lot of oil sands in this hemisphere. I think that might be usable, but the price goes up, we'll use it. If the price even goes higher and we don't have renewable sources, you know, maybe we use electric cars. There's all kinds of things that could happen. It may well be that nuclear power would be a very good product to use. I strongly support nuclear power, and we should get out of our way, but in this particular state, I know nuclear energy is of significance because of an issue. There was a vote a few years ago where the vote came up to find a certain state to dump all the nuclear waste. And there were, of course, 2 members of Congress from here. They were strongly opposed to it. But when that vote when the vote came up on that, there were 3 people that voted against that. I voted against the notion that other states have any right to come here and dump any kind of waste in your state. I'm a strong proponent of national sovereignty. It would be nice if we lived in the idealistic age where we have progressed in humanity, where boundaries wouldn't be as important, but it's not coming, it's not here, and it's not likely to come very soon. So I believe in national sovereignty and national borders. I don't like the idea... I don't like the idea of taking our border guards and sending them to Iraq to pretend they're going to train border guards in Iraq when we could use them very well right here. But the solution to the illegal immigration problem is not easily done. But if you look at the principle that says that if you subsidize something, you get more of it, but you can apply it to illegal immigration. We are subsidizing it, and we don't need to, and if we didn't subsidize it to the tune of automatic citizenship, which is called amnesty, birthright citizenship, free education, free medical care, food stamps, and Social Security, believe me, that might diminish the enthusiasm for coming and bringing their family. Won't solve the problem because ultimately it has to do with the welfare state. We have a system of government here, even though we're getting poorer and we're having trouble financially, there's still a lot of people who don't work because they have opportunities to get a check from you. So sometimes the welfare state encourages people not to work, and then there's a need for jobs, and then people come over here and then they benefit from the welfare state. If we truly had a free market economy, no income tax and minimal regulations and trade policies that made sense. To me, trade policies does not mean WTO or NAFTA or CAFTA. I don't like that.